is Champion Mill Site Update, Director Hart.
Yes, sir. Let me share my screen really quick. Okay, so before you tonight that is really loud. Okay. So we have had a summer full of work sessions, and this is our second to last one. And so we have the Champion Mill site before you tonight to talk about kind of three buckets of conversation, kind of what we have done, what we're doing, and what's left of what we are currently doing. The general cleanup process associated with cleaning up brownfields in general, and then kind of how to fund it, what are the grant opportunities, and interesting ways to think about the project to try to maximize the grant funding opportunities. So a general historical overview of the site that was put together as part of the phase 1 environmental assessment. Some key items to note are the main historical operations on the site, the main industrial users, which includes a plywood mill, a battery separator, a plywood and paper mill, and also a lumber mill. And these key industrial users use some heavy machinery, fuel, adhesives, and other chemicals in their processes to treat the lumber and produce the plywood and paper, which are the key contaminant issues on the site. This is the site in general. It is important to note that there are 2 property owners for this site. You will see the yellow outline and then the weird little triangular area that is not included in the yellow outline. That is a 5.28 acre parcel. That parcel was under separate ownership and actually went into tax default. So was owned by Lynn County. And because the property is zoned industrial currently, there is actually an ORS standard that says that when a property is industrial, it does not have to go through the standard open bidding process. It can just be directly sold to an individual. And so that is what the county actually did. Somebody put an offer on that parcel for $30,000. And the county sold it to that person without doing a direct auction for that property. So the city was not aware that that was happening. So that happened about 2 years ago. So that property is under separate ownership than the rest of that yellow outlined parcel. And so all of the assessments that the city has been doing with grants is only on the yellow outlined parcel area. And so you'll see for the 5.28 acre parcel, there's one building that's currently standing. The rest of the remaining property, there's no buildings that are standing anymore. All the rest of them have either been demolished or burned in separate fires. There's large concrete pads that still exist on the property. There's some old machinery that's left on the property, and the water tower is still left on the property. Some key items to note about the area. There's only one legal point of access for the property, and that's off of Gilbert Street next to the water treatment plant, which is by River Road. And there are a portion of the property is actually part of Cheadle Lake. About 8 acres of it is part of Cheadle Lake. And so that comes as an important point because we have to assess the water and the sediment along the riverbank, along the water bank as part of the assessment because portion of the property is as part of the lake. And then also there are wetlands associated with the site along the northern portion of it as well. And that comes into play when you're talking about redevelopment and costs associated with it as well. So it is a big site and it is a complicated site. And there's a lot going on with it, especially now when you're also dealing with 2 different property owners as well. So in terms of the environmental assessments and the progress that we've made to date, we have been really successful in getting grants so far. So we started with a $70,000 grant through Business Oregon to do a phase 1 and phase 2 assessment. That was back in 2002 and 2003. We worked with Stantec Environmental to do that work. And they did a very extensive phase 1 and have a 1,200-page environmental document with all of the historical records associated with the site. And then they did a preliminary phase 2 assessment based off of what they had available in terms of funding to assess the site. We then partnered with Oregon Cascade West Council of Governments to apply for an EPA coalition grant, which is a $1 million grant that is to fund phase 2 assessment and planning grants for Lynn and Benton County. And our Champion Mill site is the primary site for that grant. So a large portion of the funding of that $1 million grant is going towards this site. So we have done one round, or so round 2 of phase 2 assessments already on the site with that funding. It was completed this spring, and the report of that was finalized and reviewed this summer through DEQ. And the work plan for round 3, which is supposed to be the final phase 2 round, is being reviewed and finalized by DEQ, and that work is going to be done this fall. In addition to that, with the EPA grant, we're doing a market analysis, which I will be talking about a little bit later as well. We have also been able to capitalize on some state funding. We were actually approached by the state to be able to utilize this funding. So we have a $100,000 grant for infrastructure analysis. And so we are doing a transportation and sewer analysis. And that transportation analysis is going to analyze secondary access to the site to figure out how to connect to Highway 20. And the sewer analysis is going to study the sewer capacity offsite, about how to upsize the sewer capacity to handle the added capacity needed for the overall area. Again, the outstanding issue for this is that little pocket of the site that is not included in this overall area. There is a phase 2 analysis that was done for that property by the county as part of the overall sale. It has not been reviewed by DEQ to identify whether or not that is considered as fully characterized. So that is something that is an outstanding issue that does need to be addressed as we try to move this project forward. So
I have a question
Yeah.
on the last screen. The round 3, phase 2 work that's supposed to start in the fall, are they doing wells?
So we've already done groundwater testing as part of
Okay.
it. So the round 3, phase 2 is soil vapor testing to identify whether or not there's methane in the soil. And then a tier 1 ecological assessment. And then there's some other stuff that I am not fully educated in
Okay.
the environmental side of the equation to be able to understand fully what they're doing.
Okay.
But we've already done groundwater testing, and there is not necessarily groundwater issues that have been identified.
Okay.
So,
Alrighty.
So we've had no contact with the very lucky person who bought that piece of land for $30,000?
we have had previous contact with them, with one of the representatives. She has since passed away. And so I think that there is an opportunity to connect with her partner and see if there has been a change in circumstance. I have never had contact with her partner at this point, so I don't know what his intention is with the property.
Okay.
The conversations I had with his partner, there was a sense of extreme inflation of expectation of property value. And so it was not a negotiable price that was anywhere near worth our conversation point.
So the property that's outlined in the yellow line, and then there's the additional, what you said, 5 acres?
5.28 acres.
Okay. So we've done we've done the phase 1 and started the phase 2 and completing the phase 2 in the fall on only the property that has the yellow line around it, correct?
Correct.
So the 5.2 acres, if we say they're in, all the stars aligned and we're able to, the owner of the other property was able to obtain that, would that separate 5 acres need to go through all the phase 1 and phase 2?
So the county did a phase 2 assessment already on that property as part of their sale.
Okay.
So we would have to submit that phase 2 to DEQ to identify whether or not that meets the threshold of full characterization for what we're trying to accomplish. So
Did they get a no further action?
no.
They didn't get a no further.
No. So this slide kind of, it will explain it. So I do not know how they evaluated that phase 2. So there are different levels of analysis of what's called, it's basically the human health standards, basically. So you have different levels of acceptable contamination, basically. And residential standard is the most stringent. Basically, you can have the least amount of contamination, where industrial or open space, you have less stringent standards to abide by, right? So our site, the large site, we're doing all of our assessments to the highest standard because we're assuming that there's going to be a mixed use of the site, but we don't know what it's going to look like. We're assuming that there's going to be some level of residential somewhere on the site. So we're doing all of the assessment to the residential standard. I don't know what that 5.28 acres was analyzed to, whether it was industrial, commercial, or residential. I'm assuming that they did it to the industrial standard because it's zoned industrial. So we would have to probably have it rechecked to the residential standard. So that would be an additional process that we would have to go to.
I have a question on that. So when they're testing, they're doing all the tests, you're saying for residential, they're doing additional tests on top of what they would do for industrial, or they're just testing for different products?
So there are additional chemicals that are not allowed in a residential area that may be allowed in an industrial or open space area. So there are additional chemicals that they would be testing for that they're not necessarily testing for if you're looking at an industrial base.
Okay, so they don't know, if they just did an industrial test, they wouldn't know all the chemicals that are in the soil. They would only know,
Correct.
they would know these 14 and then
There might be 30 over here on the residential
that they didn't
side.
even test for.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's where I'm saying.
Seems like a racket.
You're not able to just say, well, here's the,
Jeez.
you're not able to sit here and say, well, okay, here's the testing panel. You clear it on the industrial level, but you don't clear it on these other two, but you might clear it on the residential level, right? It's not the same testing panels. So you have to do it differently.
It just seems like for the price, the money that whoever's paying us or the county, they could just test for all of it at once.
It is expensive to test. And so that's why you do it based off of the land use that you are anticipating, because these are not inexpensive. That's why we're relying on grants.
Yeah, right.
And so if you are not planning on doing residential, then you're not going to spend the money to do those extra tests, right? And the county was not planning on spending a lot of money on doing this, and
Yeah.
so they're not going to spend the extra money to do the tests. So
You had a question?
Yeah, Kelly, was there any test done on the old sawdust pile that sits right on the other side of the tracks?
no, because that's not part of the study area.
Okay. And just so everybody knows, the owner's name that passed away was BJ Justice.
Yes.
And she does have an heir. So you might have to contact her heir as well as the other
So-
partner.
I'm not sure that she was actually ever on the deed.
Yeah, she was not the owner. She was just the business partner, but she's not actually on the deed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, moving right along. So in terms of results, so you have the human health risk-based concentration, so the RBCs, which we were talking about. And this is the first round that we did in 2023-ish. And the results aren't terrible, right? So there was only 2 areas that it actually triggered for the human health risk-based issues for residential standards for formaldehyde and PAA, that on the screen. Just look at that. And that's on the eastern side of the property where you could see it on the red circles. There was a number of different areas where there's ecological-based risks of concentrations. And then there is the clean fill screening exceedances. And those are the 2 areas where you see the yellow circles. Now, the clean fill screening exceedances, it's for PCP. What that basically means is it's expensive to either treat the soil to a level in which it's not going to exceed anymore, or you're removing the soil to a landfill that will receive contaminated soil. And that's an expensive process, right? And so those are 2 areas in which you're noting that that is going to be a more expensive area to treat, basically. So those are the key areas to highlight on that round. For round 2, you do have this is the much more extensive round of testing. This was the larger funded round of testing. And you do have more areas that picked up the human health risk-based concentrations. And then they're the dioxin furans. They're based off of areas on the eastern side, the southwestern side, kind of the spine of the property through the middle there. And then there's just a few little hot spots here and there sort of thing. And so it's not across the entire property, but it's more of just concentrated areas is what we're seeing. And then there's one point of area of like other chemicals of concern, and that's more like formaldehyde that they were seeing and petroleum. This slide is very wordy. I mostly put this in for when I'm gone so that when people look back to this presentation, they have a summary of everything. But the important part of this is the data gaps. This is our plan of action for the last round of phase 2. And that's where we're going to do the vapor testing for the soil to test for methane. And then also do the tier 1 ecological risk assessments, as well as the sediment testing along the border of Cheadle Lake, because we're testing it for the property that actually is part of the lake itself. So that's the overall. Hopefully, once that is done, DEQ will be satisfied that the site will be considered fully characterized. And once that's done, you get to actually move on to the next steps. So, any questions about that so far, other than what we've already talked about? Okay. So, I want to take a moment to sort of talk about why this project is important, other than just the environmental side of the equation. So, you know, you have the environmental side, there's the safety part of the equation, right? We've had fires out there. You have the site itself, which is not the safest site on the equation, right? You have lots of areas that are unsafe for people to be. It's tripping hazards. You just generally shouldn't be on the site unless you're escorted. So it's generally a public safety issue. And you have our fire department, our police department, which are spending time going out to the site and responding to issues on a regular basis, and I'm sure that Frank could attest to. And there's an ongoing issue of illegal dumping, vandalism, and unauthorized occupancy on the site. Even though the site is fully secured with no trespassing signs, people are still getting into the sites and causing those issues. And the city has invested over $35,000 to clean up the site previously. And unfortunately, the property owner has since let the site go back to its original state after our cleanup process. And so it's an ongoing issue for our law enforcement, and it's a public safety concern. It's also an economic impact to our community as well. So the current site itself, it's 50 acres all in play, right? It only generates 8,000 and change of property taxes across all taxing entities, right? But for the same amount of acreage of industrial area in our north area on Hansard Avenue, it generates over $500,000 of property taxes all in. And so I did that just as an industrial basis, apples to apples, because it's way too hard for me to do 50 acres of residential trying to get all of those properties together. But there's a huge economic impact to let this property just sit like this. It is a major economic depression in terms of the amount of time that we're spending with our law enforcement and the fire district, as well as in terms of property revenue opportunities as well. It, is also on Cheadle Lake, which is our, crown jewel, our pride and joy, right next to Cheadle Lake Park. And so this is a great opportunity for our community to be able to turn this into something great. So there are lots of redevelopment opportunities for this project as well. There's trail connectivity from the property to the park, as well as to Western University, which then connects it pretty much all the way through the entire eastern part of the city. There's opportunities for safe routes to school through this property and to all of several different schools in the region. In addition to that, this property has for decades at this point been identified in our comprehensive plan as a site that is meant to be revitalized and rezoned as a mixed-use site from industrial development. So when we redid our comprehensive plan back in 2004, this was identified as a key site for interest and redevelopment. So I say all of this as it's been on the books of interest for the community to try to get something going for this site. And so it seems to be of importance. And so through this entire process, one of the key important things moving forward will be public engagement to figure out what the public is going to want to see on this site. And so through the brownfield process, a key component is public engagement, and through the land use process to figure out what will be the next phase of life of this process. Public input will be a key component of it as well to understand what they will want to see on it as well. So as part of that, to gear up for that, we are doing a number of studies. We've kind of touched on this. We have grants for all of these studies, and all of these studies are either planned to move forward or currently are moving forward. We already are kicking off the bottom two, and they're kind of working hand in hand together. And they're both sort of going to tell each other what to do. So the transportation study and the market feasibility study is going to indicate how the site is going to be able to gain access and what is the commercial viability for the site. So as you guys all know, Tractor Supply has been built right in front of it. That changes the dynamic of the marketability of the site. When you have a large commercial property that sort of blocks the view of the site, that changes the commercial dynamic of the viability of what can go in there. And so it changes the types of shops or large anchor shops that might be able to support any commercial activity there. So we have a market analysis that is looking at that site, identifying opportunities, and then, you know, how access will be gained from the highway to the sites will also determine the market viability, and vice versa. You know, if the marketability for commercial is strong, that will also determine the type of roadway and access that will be needed for the traffic as well. So those two will go hand in hand. And then the sewer capacity is just identifying the pipe sizes needed to accommodate future growth for the area as well. So we're doing these studies to sort of help put together the guardrails to sort of identify this is what the property can bear, so that when we do public outreach, we're going to have some information to be able to share with the public, so that we're going to be able to have realistic expectations of what can be developed on the property. So from there,
Kelly, I have a question on that.
Yeah.
Does the studies that are being done, do they include the 5 acres that's separate from it's just studying the whole area?
it's just studying the whole area.
Okay.
Yeah. So from there, I wanted to give you all a very high level, very basic understanding of the DEQ voluntary cleanup process. This is the process that if we were to move forward with the site that we would be going through. You're kind of partially in it already. So you've done the site evaluation. That's kind of the phase 1. You're in the preliminary assessment phase, which is phase 2. From there, you start the remedial investigation and risk assessments, which is kind of your health, human health and ecological evaluations and all that kind of stuff. That's part of your phase 2 as well. Once you have your full site characterization, once you've sort of done your studies to identify what can be born on the site, what is the best use of the site, you're going to work hand in hand and collaborate with DEQ to do the feasibility study, or the ABCA, which is the Alternative Brownfield Cleanup Assessment. So DEQ is actually going to be your partner through this. They work with you to identify what is the best cleanup process for the site based off of the land use that you want to do, that is going to preserve and protect human and ecological health, while being the most fiscally prudent and efficient. So they do try to balance those acts. So they will look at the property and say, you know, if there's a hot spot that's going to take an exorbitant amount of money to clean up, maybe it's a good idea to cap that hot spot and leave it in place, because it's not migratory, it's stagnant in place, and plan for a parking lot to be over that hot spot, so that you're not having to go through the process of trying to clean that up. And capping it in place is a perfectly acceptable mitigation measure, because nobody's actually living on it, nobody's staying on it. It's a migratory use for people, and it caps the contamination, right? So they will work with you to try to find those alternatives that will be fiscally prudent, but solve the problem, right? And so once you go through that process, you will get a record of decision from them that will tell you, this is your plan, this is what we all agree to, and you're going to then go through the implementation process and the cleanup process. Once you clean it up and everything is done to the approval process, you will get a no further action letter. And they will close your cleanup process, and the site is done. Now that you understand that process, separately and before that, though, you need to make the decision about the policy decision about liability. and entering into a prospective purchasers agreement. This is if the city were to be the one to purchase the property. This is a liability shield, basically. So we would, as part of the voluntary cleanup process, excuse me, we would enter into a prospective purchasers agreement, which basically does the same thing that I just explained to you, but you would enter into this agreement, which would take you out of the liability chain of custody to basically not allow for third-party lawsuits to say that you're liable for, issues associated with the contamination on the site, basically. So it's a bit of a liability shield. To do something like this, you do need to hire a specialized environmental attorney and some consultants associated with it. There are some processes you have to go through, and you do need to pay for DEQ's time to go through the process as well. So there is a cost benefit analysis that you'll want to do. So any recommendation associated with this would be to review the phase 2 analysis once you get it completed, and then weigh your pros and cons associated with it. But there are 3 different types of prospective purchasers agreements. One is more shielded after the other, sort of thing. The third one is the greatest level of protection. But the first one is a minimal shield, but it does not take you out of the third party liability. So there's different phases to it, but it is something to consider. So, anticipated cleanup costs. Full disclosure, this is me literally throwing a dart at a dartboard. This is a huge, wide range of anticipated costs. We are still in the midst of doing the phase 2 analysis, so we do not yet know what the full cleanup costs are. We have been fully funded for our phase 2 stuff, so that is being taken care of. There will be costs associated with putting together the feasibilities and the alternative brownfield cleanup assessments. There are DEQ grants that are available for that, so we could try to get that. There's also EPA technical brownfield assistant grants associated with that. And then cleanup assistance and implementation could be anywhere from $1 million to $10 million or more, or I'm not going to say less than 1 million. But that will be determined based off of the feasibility study that is agreed to between DEQ and the city. And that's going to be a negotiation. But there's lots of different grants that are available, which I'll go through after the slide. But it is still up in the air about how much it's going to cost to go through this process. So we still have a lot of work to figure this part out. In terms of still moving this project forward, this is still a big project. We're still in the very beginning phases of doing the assessment, but with a team, you could get this project done in 3 to 5 years with one person working on it. Like we have been, it could take 10 years to get it done. So it depends on the capacity of the city to make this happen. So there are some other things that need to be considered as well. There's a lot of other unknown costs and a lot of other things that are going on this property other than just the brownfield side of the equation. There needs to be obtained secondary access across the railroad to connect to Highway 20. That is a big project. We have significant concrete on the site that needs to be removed. Unfortunately, we have done the testing and there is no contamination underneath the concrete, which means that brownfield grants will not pay for the removal of the concrete. So we need to have a different way to find how to fund the removal of the concrete. There's also wetlands on the site. So depending on how you want to use the site, you'll either maintain the wetlands on the site or you'll have to delineate them and mitigate them. There are 3 septic tanks on the site, as well as a decommissioned gas underground storage tank. And so depending on what you do on the site, those might also need to be removed. Depending on who we partner with or how we move forward, there is a significant amount of city infrastructure that will have to go onto the site to build throughout it. And then the upsizing of the sewer off-site that is currently being studied. And then you have the water tower on the site that needs to be repaired and restored as well. So, like I have said, this is a big, complicated project. That's not just a simple brownfield cleaning up of the site. So there's lots of moving parts associated with this. So how are we going to fund it? Number one, complete the environmental assessments. That is funded already. There are a number of brownfield-specific grants and low-interest or forgivable loans through Business Oregon and the EPA that are stackable, or you can do it consecutively. And so they're anywhere from $60,000 to $500,000, depending on what grant you use. I have given Ron the contacts for both EPA and Business Oregon to be able to get in contact with them to start working with them about how to stack those grants. I think that the URD, the Cheetah Lake URD, is also a good tool that is available. The property is not currently a project as part of that, but it can be. And we can utilize those funds that are currently in the URD to help fund a portion of this project. And then, as you guys saw, when I talked about how the property can, once it's redeveloped, increase the property values, that will help refund the URD to then be able to do the other projects that are listed within the URD as well. So it's kind of an exchange of use the funding now in exchange for its benefits later. There are some additional opportunities, and this is a benefit that I have gotten from being able to go to the Brownfields conferences that you all have sent me to. It's looking at the project as not just a brownfield project. You want to look at it as an economic development project. You want to look at it as a parks project. You want to look at it as an infrastructure project. You want to piecemeal it out to every single different thing that you can possibly think about. So is it an arts project? So for the water tower, I know that everybody wants to paint strawberries on it. So can we get an arts grant to restore the water tower? For the park, for the restoration of the waterfront, we can get a parks grant. We can get an EDA grant to do some of the reconstruction or some of the work associated with some of the commercial activity that we're talking about wanting to do there. You can get a Connect Oregon grant for some of the road work that we're trying to do to get the access way for Highway 20. So there's lots of different ways that you want to think about the project to be able to connect all of the different types of activities that the project will serve. You can also include system development charges for the project because there is growth associated with it. And then finally, if this is too big of a heavy lift for the city to consider doing, you can bring it into a public-private partnership earlier than later by issuing a request for proposals, an RFP, and identifying that the city will be a partner with the developer by being the grant sponsors for all of the grants that cities are only eligible for. And identifying what skin in the game the city is willing to put in, and then what the developers can bring to the table and what the developers will have free license to do and what the city needs to get out of it, and identifying what that partnership would look like and see if a developer would be willing to be that partner in exchange for having the ability to develop the property. So there's an opportunity to do that as well. But there is a recommendation at the bottom of the slide here. Sustainable Strategies DC is a consultant that has done several presentations at the brownfield conferences that I've gone through, where they will spout off 40 different grants that are available based off of a 3-minute presentation that somebody has done. And so I would recommend getting in touch with them to try to help do some of the grant stacking that would be working for this project. So there are opportunities for grants. There's lots of them out there. But I think the city has to have an expectation that there will be some funding that will have to come associated with this project. And I think the URD is a good opportunity for that, as well as system development charges. So next steps, obviously finish the phase 2. We're going to need to designate a project lead, obviously, since I am no longer going to be here. I would highly recommend putting together a committee to make this project work. That is one of the things through listening to other successful projects through the conferences that I've been through, is that there has always been a committee from the city working to champion this projects forward. So having a committee help move and shepherd the projects forward would be a good option. And then engage consultants for the prospective purchasers agreement if you guys are moving forward with that, and moving forward with it to help with the expertise. I have cobbled this together with the knowledge over the last couple of years as much as I can, but getting some official expertise would be helpful, I think, and then begin identifying that funding would be good. And then finally, the one slide that we have been putting on all of ours. Obviously, this directly aligns with our strategic plan. It is an item identified explicitly. There are regulatory drivers associated with this project, explicitly with DEQ and EPA. And then in terms of risk without the action, there is the medium risk in terms of, the property being a degrading influence and demands on the police and fire departments. And then capacity is going to be the largest issue for the project. So with that, available for questions.
Any questions?
I have one. To keep this moving forward, how much staff time are we talking? Is this almost where you could hire a full-time position, or is that too much? Is there too much waiting between all the phases for that to be cost effective?
I think at this point, until you get the phase 2 completed and we know exactly what we've got there, I would say yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lead time. When you get to a point where, all right, we're going to start applying for grants, or we're going to start the cleanup process, then I would say, yeah, it's going to be a full-time job.
Yeah.
In order to move it through without taking the next 30 years.
Are there people that specialize in that and that are good at that, and that's what they do?
We'd have to find them.
Yeah, it seems like a rare.
There's consultants.
Specialty.
So before I did something like that, I think rather than hire somebody, I think you'd hire a consulting firm that would specialize in something like that, rather than bring another staff person on and then you use consultants you manage the consultants and then they're doing the work. Would be what I would look at.
But all the
first.
grant applications and managing all that, is that some of the consultants?
They will do some of that too. Yeah. Yeah. The COG right now does some of that for us, but yeah, if you started stacking grants, we would need help with that for sure.
All right.
I hear Oregon City hired somebody who's pretty good at that stuff.
Any other questions from council?
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you. All righty. Okay, so that will bring this meeting to adjournment at 5:45. We'll reconvene at 1800 or 6 PM for the regular session. What was it?
Some guy hit a camera in the bathroom at one of them. Not here, but that is disgusting.
Okay. Okay. Did I scare you? Well, I call the meeting to order. Let's please rise for the flag salute. All righty, thank you. City Recorder, please call roll.
Mayor Jacola,
Present?
Council President Steinhebel,
Here.
Councilor Conti, Councilor Mann, Councilor Salvage,
Here.
Councilor McLean,
Here.
Councilor Workman.
Here.
All righty, thank you. We'll move into the consent calendar. Following items are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussions on these items unless the councilor so requests. In that case, the item will be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. Excuse me. Agenda, Lebanon City Council agenda, September 10, 2025. Committee meetings, Library Advisory Committee, April 8th, 2025. Council meetings, August 27th, 2025. Regular work and executive session. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. We're going to move into presentations, and the first up is the Oregon Cascade West Council of Governments.
That is a-
Ryan,
That is a mouthful.
vote.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, and good evening, councilors and city staff. Thank you so much for having me. I assume this is hot, we're on, right? Okay. As the mayor said, my name is Ryan Vogt, and I am the executive director for Cascades West Council of Governments, and now the executive director for the Community Services Consortium as well. That's been a bit in the making. I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. And in your packet, you have some information about the Council of Governments' footprint in the Lebanon community this last year. And one of our board members likes to describe us as a friendly octopus. It's just kind of a reminder that we have our fingers or our tentacles in so many different things as a social services and economic development agency, that I like to provide some information about kind of where we are specifically in the community. So if you're getting regional information, it's sometimes hard to distill, yeah, so what? What does that mean for us? What are we getting in Lebanon? And so I have that for you. I've also provided for you the community action regional report now. This is kind of my first year being in this role. Haven't been there for a whole year yet, so I apologize. This one is spread from a regional perspective. It doesn't have that same level of distillation around what it means for your community. But as you review the two of those, and I'm not going to belabor those reports today, I'm happy to answer questions about them, but they're there for your reference as you see fit. But as you look at them, you get a sense of the service array that is contained within the two organizations, and it gives you a little bit more context for why it is that the last 15 or 20 years, the different boards for the two agencies have been contemplating how do we partner better together. Specifically, the major overlap is for low-income seniors, happen to routinely seek services from both organizations. And these are people in desperate need, whether it's housing or utility assistance, or whether it's staying in their own home safely or what have you. And so many of them have transportation issues. Obviously, many of them have various funding issues. And so the notion that in order to access housing services, they have to go somewhere and talk to somebody. And if they want utility assistance, they have to go somewhere else and talk to somebody else. And if they need help paying their rent or their mortgage, they have to go and talk to somebody else. And if they have food insecurity, they may have to go to 2 or 3 different places. And so the board's really contemplated within that context the possibility of bringing the 2 organizations more closely together to try and figure out how we create some one-stop conversation. Now, we've got a long ways to go in terms of being able to make it so that somebody who needs our services across both organizations can see one person or just fill out one application. But that's really the beginnings of what it is that we are trying to accomplish. And I have a little bit of experience with that, and a little bit of experience actually here in Lebanon with that, because an entire lifetime ago, back in 2005, I opened up the Child Welfare and Self-Sufficiency Center right down the street here. I'm very excited about this new opportunity and what it is that we can bring to life, but we've got a ways to go. So like I said, you've got those reports in there. I'm happy to answer questions, but I don't intend to work through those. I do want to talk about, since those reports were 2024, something that's a little bit fresher in terms of the things that we have going on here. And so a couple things that are probably worth highlighting is that one of the places that the Cascades West Council of Governments does is we do a bit of work in economic development. And I know all of a sudden I'm taking a radical shift from low-income seniors, but economic development. And we've been working with the City of Lebanon, and we've been working with the city administrator, city manager, Ron, for a bit, and we predate in some of that work as well. So if you're not familiar, we've been assisting the city with a couple of grant applications to try and help shore up some of the things that you're working on here. We were able to help you all land a housing infrastructure support fund grant for $100,000 to help with sewer capacity and road access for the Champion Mill property. We've been instrumental in helping to manage and work through a number of brownfield sites over the years here in Lebanon, including this Champion Mill property as well. We've done some additional preliminary planning, and I think we may be ramping up some of our planning over the next couple of months to help the city navigate through some transition work. On the social services side, we have been providing senior health insurance benefit assistance. Now, this is counseling for people who are trying to navigate Medicaid and Medicare changes, and we've had 48 people in the Lebanon community be consumers of that service just in the last quarter. Medicare and Medicaid changes are really troubling and problematic in terms of trying to navigate that if you're a senior, figuring out what this looks like for you in the coming days. One of the other places where the 2 organizations overlap, and I'd like to highlight this for just a moment because it's going to be salient, it continues to be salient for your community, and that is the notion of food instability. So on the Community Services Consortium, Community Action Agency side, we run the Lynn Benton Food Share. We provide millions of pounds of food to the region, Lynn and Benton counties every year. We provide money to provide food to social service organizations, Gleaners Group, food banks, all aimed to try and make sure that those people who are food insecure have access to nutritious, healthy, regular food and meals. And on the Council of Government side, we also run the Meals on Wheels program. So these are 2 programs really aimed at serving many of the same people. By bringing the 2 organizations closer together, we can streamline that in a way that makes sure that people have stability over a longer period of time, and that we can remove some of the administrative barriers to getting those things done. So that's a sense of a couple of things that we've got going on in your community. If I could take the liberty to go with a little side narrative for just a moment, since Police Chief is here, hopefully not about to get anybody in trouble, but we had a really cool engagement a couple of months ago on a social services call that also involved one of your officers. We do adult protective services, and we received a call of a family that may be in distress, have some concerns. The information was pretty compelling to a point where we asked for law enforcement assistance and a welfare check. Officer Fountain responded, was able to validate that the family was actually in pretty good shape and was the concerns that had been brought forward were not present, which was wonderful. But Officer Fountain did find that that family needed some additional supports and took it upon himself to go out to Walmart after a shift and purchase a wheelchair and some additional supports for the shower for this consumer. Because I think it's just the heart of service that comes. And despite us reaching out and saying, hey, we can help offset that, we're happy to refund that through one of our programs, Officer Fountain kind of shrugged it off and said that, this is part of my community, it's part of what I do. So I'd like to give that acknowledgement to you while you're here, because that's just kind of a really cool story about the kind of work that my staff know every day. We're touching lives and helping people. And when we see other people in the community sharing that same value, it really helps with people coming to work with a smile on their face. So I could do this for an hour, or I could take questions now.
Any questions?
I'd just like to thank you and hope I don't need you to soon.
Thanks, Counselor.
No, at the end of my mom's life, Meals on Wheels took good care of her, and I appreciate it.
Excellent.
You do good stuff for us.
Thank you. One of the things that we are a bit concerned about, and I'm not going to politicize any kind of conversation here, but where we exist right now in the current realities of what's predicted for Medicaid supports and for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, is that we anticipate that there are going to be some additional hurdles for people to get through in order to maintain those benefits. Some of the people who currently receive those benefits are going to struggle to navigate those hurdles. And so we anticipate that the need and demand for food security is going to grow. We are trying to figure out how we're going to stay ahead of that curve. I've never come here before and asked for anything other than to just kind of prepare you for where I'm at. And I'm not asking for anything today, but I do want you to know that this is probably an area of a little bit of vulnerability for the two organizations, is to make sure that we're getting enough food out to your communities. So thank you, Councilor.
Could I ask one question?
Of course.
The much more glamorous issue, the wetland feasibility study for both Lynn and Benton counties. I know that is it ongoing still, or has it been finalized?
So is everybody familiar with it? Yeah. We've been working on that for a couple weeks now. Thank you for the question. The phase one of the feasibility study was done to try and look at the possibility of establishing a public land bank that we could sell credits on to bring down the cost of offsetting wetland work. And the Wetlands Consortium has applied for a phase two grant, and the funder is moving forward with that, and they're also hoping for a formalized endorsement from the board of the Council of Governments, even though it's really the Wetlands Consortium standing alone to do it. That won't be a barrier. So in answer to your question, the phase two is the grant application's been submitted for the phase two to try to figure out what the next steps would be, and we are highly hoping that that's going to be a successful place for us.
So I'd just like the council to know how much we work with Ryan's staff. We do a lot of things with them. They're very responsive, great to work with, And we appreciate everything you guys do for us. So I just want to put that out there and let your staff know that.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Ryan.
Any other questions, comments? All righty. Well, I appreciate your time and your briefing.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Next up is the Lebanon Museum Foundation update. It'll be presented by Mayor Paul Zies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor,
Welcome,
Council
welcome.
President, councilors, and city manager. Weird to be on this end, but it's nice to be back.
Glad to have you.
And I really appreciate you putting us on the agenda so that we can share with you what we've been doing the past 8 years. We've done a lot of things publicly, but I don't think the council is really aware probably of what we've been doing in some of the details. Let me go here. Perfect. We were in the strategic plan also in the arts and culture section, and the idea was to develop a strategy for a museum for Lebanon. The city council approved a committee to research what we needed to do because I wanted this to happen. And the city put out a call for those interested. We got a group of 7 people that had a wide range of background, including our curator, Tawny, who actually is a curator from Nevada. She worked with other museums. So we really had a good team to go into this. The committee visited the Eastland Historical Museum and the Albany Museum. We later on, I think, Independence and a couple other ones too, because we really wanted to see what they were doing and how we could do what they're doing or how they became the museum that they were. And it's interesting because Brownsville's a little different because they're funded by the county. So that actually is a county kind of organization. When you look at like Independence and some of the other ones, I think the Sweet Home, they're more of an independent agency. So we were kind of looking at the different ways. So we went to the council with a request. The city gave us $10,000 seed money. The committee created a 501c3, and that was approved in November of 2018. We have 7 board members right now with 2 ex officio members. I'm the president and acting treasurer. Linda Ziedrich is vice president. Secretary position's open. Curators, Tawny Morikawa. Little asterisk is just the people who were the original members from the original committee, which we have quite a few still. We have Wayne Dykstra, who's on the board, Jolie Root, Gary Marks, and Camellia Jepson from Camelia's Candles Downtown. She's one of our newer members. And our ex officio members, Wayne Rieskamp and Jeff Smith, who's a photographer and quite a historian. Could our group stand up? I'd just like to share that they came to support, and we really appreciate all the work that they've been doing. Thank you, guys. The first big collection was from the former Lebanon Museum Group from the 90s to 2017, and that was stored at the, it was called the Oregon Real Estate. It was one of those little offices, and we received several other collections since then. We got John Dalton, the photographer, Dorothy Page, John Jenkins, who a lot of you know was a strawberrian for years around here. We have a lot of strawberry memorabilia. And this is just an example that I brought to show what we've been doing to preserve. And this is from Dalton's collection. That's Richie's Drive-In. And you remember, that's Tony's Tacos now. And that's also the grand opening day that he was a photographer that was very popular in town and had a store downtown. And they ended up selling his estate. And I think what happened is they closed the store, family passed away, then the family sold things off, and somebody came to us with this collection left over. So it's kind of neat because we have the slides and they've been scanned in and preserved. Otherwise, that thing would have been gone. We would not have had these. But I love the grand opening day of the Lebanon Community Hospital. And there's a whole bunch of other pictures. There was a big awards thing out in the fields out there. And that hospital obviously does not look anything like it does today. It's amazing. The museum events, we've had a ton of events since 2018. Our kickoff was about the Kalapuya natives. That was Tony Farquhar, who was from the ranger station up in Sweet Home. He's no longer with them, but he came out and did that. He is an amazing speaker. If you haven't seen him, he's really great. He kind of dresses up and he's got the garb and all the little artifacts. It's really a fun talk. We did Growing Up in Lebanon with 3 of our local people that have grown up, Ken Bolf, Tony Hayden, Sally Morgan, who recently passed away. So getting this information is important because these people who have lived here are passing away and getting older, and we're trying to keep those memories so that we can share those with the rest of the community. Lebanon Pharmacy, Bob and Betty Smith. Pictorial History of the Lebanon Mills was Jeff Smith. These have been really well received, and we're getting 20, 30, and in some cases 40 people to some of these events to come. And we did them here, and we've tried to kind of keep it here because it's a little bit easier, this building in this area. Pictorial History of the Fire Department, Historic Downtown Walk, Santiam Wagon Road, and the history of the Lebanon Police Department, Chief Stevenson. And that was a good talk. Lebanon in the 50s, John Leard, History of Sodaville, Civil War Medicine, Native American Storytelling, Tribal Histories of Willamette Valley, Historic Homes, and First Fruits. Our very own Linda Ziedrich, Vice President, has a book, Pacific Coast Fruit Industry History, and it's really fascinating. It has a lot to do with how the fruit trees came here across the country. Very interesting. This is just some of the flyers of all the different events that we've had. Just kind of a little example. At the Historic Homes Tour, the First Fruits. During our time in 8 years, the grants and projects that we've done, we got the $10,000 from the city. We've done grants from Linn County Cultural Coalition has really helped us out. Publicity, marketing, that helped us to get our business card, our flyers, and a lot of that, our website going. We got a large flatbed scanner for scanning those slides. Oral history and transcription and recording media. That was a really cool project. And those two, the recorder, microphone, hard drive, are connected. We got some from the Siletz Tribal Trust and also from Linn County Cultural Coalition. And we got, I think it was 9 people. I'll talk about that in a second. And we got them to record the oral history of these people that we will lose at some point in time. And we will never have that, but we now have a recording of their stories and the history of them in the community. So this is really important stuff that's just going away, and we're trying to preserve that. And then we got some exhibit and cleaning displays. So basically, we've gotten about $17,000 from grants and projects. Since 2018, we performed cataloging, cleaning, storing of donation items. This oral history project I was talking about was funded by the Siletz tribe to capture the stories of 10 local people. And we were able to give each person a copy of the CD with the recordings and the information and the transcript. Plus, we have that all in our file too. But they were able to get one for their family, which was kind of cool. We scanned photos from the collection. We've created a historical calendar. We handed one out to show you one of our little fundraisers that we did. It's a little bit of an older calendar, but I kind of want to give you an idea of what we've been doing. And we create and maintain the website and Facebook page. We started with $10,000 money from the city, and currently we have $12,000. I think that's pretty darn good money management. We've been very frugal. A lot of grants have really helped the little things that we've needed to do. We've gained a following and have a group of really gracious donors. We've searched for grants to get a building, but what we're coming across is most grants are not for the capital of securing a building. Most of the grants that we find are, oh, you have a building? Oh, we can give you handicapped access. Oh, you got a building? We can help you put some displays up or give you money for that. So it's just not out there to, oh, you need a new building? We'll help you get a new building. That is not one we've been able to find yet. We're looking, but we have not found it. Currently, we have our collection of secure temperature-controlled storage at one location. We did have it in a couple locations. The library here was holding some things for us. Kendra Oliver was one of the original, not Oliver, I'm sorry. Kendra from the library was on our board from the beginning, and she helped us with storing some of the items of that first collection that we got. But we now have them all in a temperature-controlled storage, and it's all in one place, so it's a lot safer. We feel a lot more comfortable with it. But we really want to get it into a place, a building. A few items are on display at Camelia's Candles. If you're downtown, check it out. Take a look inside her shop. We've got a couple displays. One's really cool. Let's see. Right here on the, is it a, oh, there we go. That one right there, that little case, has got a bugle in it, and that is from the Lebanon Middle School. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tawny. And it's one of the students that went to the Lebanon Middle School. And all of that stuff is like the shirts and the hat and all the stuff that they wore back in the day when they had a bugle corps, I believe it was there. And then on the right, we've got some telephone equipment, some of the early Lebanon telephone equipment in history. And there's a few other little knickknacks in there, but it's not a huge thing, but she's been gracious to give us this space so that we can at least share it, have some flyers out, and kind of tell the community what we're doing. Yes, please.
Can you go back one?
Oh, absolutely.
When you look at the telephones,
Yeah.
in that, the flat case, the one that's kind of black, that actually was the original payphone in the Lebanon Hotel.
Oh, okay. I did not know
So
that.
that's how some of the stuff that we have been,
Very cool.
oh, okay. I'm so used to doing programs without a mic. In that one case, you can see a pink phone, a yellow phone, and then the black one.
Okay.
That is the original payphone from the Lebanon.
Doesn't show on.
And the case with the bugle is from the last band leader and music teacher at the building.
Okay.
And he gave us a lot of stuff, and her husband, or her father, his wife's father practically wired Lebanon for telephone and gave us, that's where those telephones came from, a huge telephone collection. So that's all I have to
That's why we
say.
have a professional curator on our team, because she knows her stuff. I don't. So what we're looking for a building that's about 800 to 2,000 square feet or plus. We basically need an area that we can show stuff, and then we also need an area in the back where we can, on the accession of stuff and bring it in, clean it up, work on it, store it, because not everything in a museum gets put out. And that was one of the things I learned, didn't even know that. The museums don't just put everything out. There's a whole collection, and you rotate things in and out of your collection into that. So you really need those two spaces. We need easy entry doors, elevator if possible, a securable area, because we're talking about if we share with somebody, we need it securable. AC, heat, humidity control. And of course, we need it inexpensive or free. And we've been asking around, we've been looking at different buildings, and they come and they go. And it's just a difficult market right now to find anybody that's willing to do this. But we are a 501c3, so we're still looking and asking around. We're continuing to search for a home. We want to continue to provide community programs, and we want to, when we get a building, we want to have it so that we work with the school district and have classes so the students come in, not only just the community, but the students will come in and be part of their history curriculum, which I think would be really cool to have that about Lebanon being taught in the schools, because it's not right now. Create a capital project plan and budget once a building is found. Apply for grants and fundraise to assist in the configuration of the museum building. And once our collection is fully cataloged, we'd like to make it available online also, which would make it kind of nice. But you can't do that until you have a space to photograph and catalog and get everything set up. So that's been our problem. We've looked at many buildings. We've looked at the Elks building that's over on, just off of Main Street there, that one that just sold. We've looked, the first one that we originally wanted was the library, the old library hospital building, because that's got so much history in it. We thought that would be great. And then we've looked at, 3 or 4 other buildings. And then the reason I came here, honestly, was in the beginning, we heard that the LBCC was selling, and we would love to have that annex as the museum, and then have the mill that's right next to it as part of like a display, so that we could have things and show people and tour things. But we could use a building. So we were looking at that, and they're asking like for $1 bazillion. So I don't think that's going to happen. And I've tried contacting them, and they just will not get back to me. So I don't think they care about Lebanon as much as we do. So, which makes sense. They're a company, I guess. So our mission statement that we came up with 8 years ago, and it still stands, is to preserve, educate, and engage the community in the history and the culture of the Lebanon area. And our hashtag is Our Lebanon Story. And we have a website, we have Facebook pages, and that's about it. I know I kind of went through a whole lot quick. I just didn't want to take too much time, but I just wanted to keep everybody up to date on what we're doing and where we're going, where we're trying to go. But our biggest thing, and it has been since day one, is to try and find a building. Over the years, buildings have been promised. One of the buildings that just sold over on Sherman Street that's got the block glass on it. I don't remember the address of that one, but it's got the block glass and the little rounded part. That was actually offered at one point. I think the bar across the street was offered at one time, way before. I'm talking years, maybe in the 70s or 80s. There was a train car that was there was a caboose, I think, that was donated, and the train railroad company at the time had it. We don't know whatever happened to that. So there's a lot of things that were always in the works, but it's never happened, and we want to make it happen somehow. So, questions?
I have one. For some reason, I've been under the impression that the old Scrogan's feed store was part of your museum operation, but that's not, you guys don't own that.
It's not. There was an organization called the Scroggins Mill Foundation, I think it was, and they had it, and they've sold it to Rick Franklin Corporation, and we don't have anything really to do with it.
Okay, all right.
And we had talked about trying to do something with it, but we looked at that building and that foundation and the size of those timbers inside, we would never be able to have enough money to do anything with it.
Yeah.
Rick could probably do it, but there's no way we could. We would partner with them if there was something, but I just don't see that as a museum. You know, we really need temperature controlled and stuff, and that building is like a screen door.
Right.
As you've seen it.
Yeah.
And a screen door on the roof too, I think. Any other questions? And the next time we have a talk, we hope that you guys can come out and enjoy it, because they're really fun. They're very interesting. We get a lot of different types of speakers on different topics, and it just makes it really interesting.
Well, I do know this, that on the downtown walk, I usually help out with that.
Oh, yeah. We do that downtown walk every year
Yeah.
now. And
Yeah,
BLT works with that,
Yes.
with us. And that's always a fun
And,
thing.
and every year it seems like it grows a little bit bigger.
Yes.
It's because people are told, they're like, hey, there's upstairs to some of these buildings, and
It's really
a
cool.
lot of
knew
people
there was
don't
a dance
realize
hall
that.
there.
What's that?
Nobody ever knew that big dance hall was
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, is there any other questions, comments? Do you have a comment?
So one of the things we'll be doing, Paul, in the next 3 to 4 months is Jason Williams and I will be updating our surplus property list and looking at those, and we'll look at all the buildings and things that we have in surplus and probably bring that back to the city council at some point. So that'd be something for the city council to consider at that time. I know there's a couple that have potential, so we'll get that list updated and move forward with that.
Thank you. Again, thank you guys for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so
Good
much.
to see you.
And everybody that's on the board and helps out with this, thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, we'll move on to public comments. Citizens may address the council by filling out a testimony card prior to speaking and hand it to the city recorder. Each citizen is provided up to 5 minutes to provide comment to the council. The council might take additional 2 minutes to ask clarifying questions. City recorder will accept and distribute written comments at speaker's request. Tonight, we only have one. Are we able to put a timer up, or do I need to use the old thingy here?
Yes, I'll put one up there just a
Okay.
minute.
So when you come up and speak, they'll have a timer up there for 5 minutes, and I will cut you off. What's that?
Do you want to hand the gavel over? Do you want me to cut her off?
Well, no.
If you do, I'm
It
just
might,
saying.
it won't get awkward here. It might get
Okay.
awkward at
Cut you
home.
off.
Yeah.
So the only comment, or the only public comment I received tonight is Shelley Jacklow with the Downtown Association.
And I'm used to him cutting me off.
Oh, come on.
Hi. I haven't been here for a while, so there's quite a lot of things that the Downtown Association has done over the summer. I guess kind of to kick it off was the powwow that we kind of partnered up with the Lebanon School District, and it was the first Willamette powwow that Lori Rigolato kind of headed that and did a fantastic job. It was a huge success. It was at Boulder Falls, and it will be an annual event going on. I think she's even looking for a larger location because it was so successful. The next event we had was the Wine Walk, and we sold around 200 tastings and lots of people came downtown. It was, we doubled what we had the year before. We had 3-4 different spots with live music, photo booths, the wine tasting, food tasting. It was a great time. The car show, we had 112 cars that signed up. We had over 1,000 people wandering around downtown and around 30 different vendors that came out. And we had live music, and the streets were definitely full of a lot of activity. We had 7 different concerts that took place at Academy Square. The best attendance we've ever had. There was, around, I think the biggest one we had was around 600 people that were there. We had consistently between 12 to 15 different vendors that were out there. Raise stage. We had lots of sponsors for that, a good turnout, more than we anticipated, and hope next year we'll, I don't know, I'm working for that 1,000 people mark, so hopefully we'll get it. The movies at the Mill, we had at Scroggins Mill, we teamed up with the San Am Excursion, and they had their Friday night at the Mill, and then we had the movies, and there was around 100 people, maybe a little more at the last one for that. So it took just a little bit to get it out there, but once it got out there, people definitely enjoyed those. And then this month we had the Harvest Festival. It was our first Harvest Festival that we had. It was a Friday night, Saturday. We had over 1,000 people that were in the downtown. We had the chili cook-off and cider tasting. Between the Harvest Festival and the car show, because that was the only way that I could track where people were coming from. We did have people from 35 different towns that came into Lebanon, 4 different states. And the band that we had at Cafe Rock, which Cafe Rock is the one that paid for the bands to come out there and have music, but they were actually from Brazil. So we even had in there, they took 5 rooms at the hotel for 2 nights. And then the car show, there were 8 different rooms that were booked for the car show for people to stay. So between just those 2 events that I've been able to track, people coming in and out for the tourism, for what you guys give us money for, I was able to at least track that on our 2 events. And I think next year I'm going to have a QR code at the beer garden and the food vendors where you can scan it, and it just simply say where are you from, so we can kind of get an idea of who is coming to our concerts. We will have the veterans banners go up hopefully tomorrow. We have 45 of them going up. We have about 80 that have been requested, but we're vetting the vets to make sure that we can make sure that they should be going up in Lebanon. We have the scarecrows going out on the lampposts, and we had our first crosswalk art that was done by Gary. He's left, but he did the first one. It's amazing, love it, and we've got more that are going to be going out through downtown. So I gotta hurry up. We got the Halloween hustle coming up, the downtown trick or treat, and we are working with the holidays in the park for Christmas. So we'll be starting all of that here very soon. Questions?
I don't have a question, I have a comment. I want to thank you and all the Lebanon Downtown Association for all the work you guys are doing. I got to go to one of the concerts in the park this summer, and I wish I could have made it to more because it was great. The band was great. There were lots of vendors, and it was just a great time. And I was glad that I was able to make that. I wish I could make more of them.
Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
Car show wise, I only hear on the internet buzz that, is there any way to shut the whole street down, or is that just too much red tape? And
I said I was going to, after seeing the comments and things, and I mean, I can look into it. I don't know. I have no idea how difficult it is.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that, it's kind of the same thing with the vendors. Sometimes the merchants complain about the vendors because it's taking business away from them, but then the vendors, I think,
Yeah.
bring business into the downtown
I personally
too.
don't feel uncomfortable down there, and I think
Yeah.
it's kind of good that they come through there.
But the car
But I
show,
can
it's like
understand some people thinking it's
People
dangerous.
drove through and seen it.
Yeah.
And so they were like, oh, the car show's down here. Let me go park so I can go. I had 3 car entries that were just out driving their car and came and signed up. So I don't know if that would hurt it or help it. So it's always tricky. But I did say that I'm like, I'm going to actually look into it and see exactly what is involved in doing it. I mean, the Strawberry Festival does
Yeah.
it. So I think it's something worth
I just had to ask.
looking into. Yeah. I mean, it would be good. I mean, then you could walk around more freely, but I don't know if it would hurt, because people do drive by, and that was a lot of comments on the buzz. Like, I love driving slow through downtown and seeing all the cars and all the stuff.
Yeah, and I know
going
people
on,
were mad
so-
because they couldn't get through there. Well, there's a lot of ways around it.
Oh, I know.
Anybody
You
in
can't-
anybody
I
who
came
lives
to
in
the
Lebanon knows you
conclusion I
don't have
can
to go
make-
down Main Street.
Yeah, and I can't make very many people happy. But this year too, I am with the Jamboree ending. I've already went and seen who their sponsors were, and I'm gonna go and see if we can get any of them for our concert. So maybe we can get it bigger this year or next year than this year.
I just want to say thank you for all you do. The concerts were great. I made several of them. And then the fall festival this last weekend was awesome. I really appreciate the data that you bring too, especially like the how many people are staying in the rooms and stuff. Like that's really helpful because as you point out, that's the tourism money that goes back into the downtown. So thank you for making that connection for us. And thanks again for all you do.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All righty, thank you so much.
Thanks.
We'll move on to our public hearing for ordinance number 8 for 2008, ordinance bill number 3039. Public hearing regarding this amendment to the comprehensive plan and zoning map is now open at 6:40.
Excuse me.
Will the city attorney please read hearing procedures?
Thank you. Tonight's hearing will be pursuant to the quasi-judicial hearing procedure set forth in 197.797. At the start of each hearing, council members will be asked to disclose any ex parte communications, conflict of interest, or bias. The applicable substantive criteria for this hearing will be addressed in the staff report to council. Testimony may be in oral or written form, but must be directed towards the criteria outlined in the staff report, the comprehensive plan, or the city's land use regulations. Any issue raised must be accompanied by statements and evidence sufficient enough to allow the council and party members an opportunity to respond. Please note that failure to raise an issue, including constitutional issues, by the close of the hearing will prevent any appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals.
All righty, thank you. Do any councilors wish to declare ex parte contact, conflict, or bias? Is there anyone in the audience that objects to the notice that was sent in this case or to the jurisdiction of this body to hear and consider the case? Will the Community Development Director, Kelly Hart, please present your thing?
Sure. Good evening. Before you tonight is a amendment to the comprehensive plan map and zoning map. This should look very familiar to you. You did this 2 years ago, but for a parcel 2 lots down. This is for a car wash facility. In the mixed use zone, car wash facilities are not allowed, but in the highway commercial zone, car wash uses are allowed. And so the proposal is to amend the lot that has been authorized by the Planning Commission to change the zoning from mixed use to highway commercial. And so the property is within the urban growth boundary and the city limits, and it's currently designated mixed use. And the proposal is to designate it for the comprehensive plan designation as commercial and the highway designation as highway commercial. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on August 20th and found the application complied with the decision criteria. They also reviewed 2 other applications. One of them was a minor nope, that's not right. A property line adjustment to combine 2 properties together to create this parcel, and then also a conditional use permit to review the car wash itself. They approved both of those applications contingent on the city council's consideration of this application tonight. And they recommend the city council approve the comprehensive plan and zone change as well. There is a slight change to the conditions of approval. Since we did use the template from the previous application, there are two conditions that are sort of carryover that don't actually apply. One of them is related to a condition for development of Burdell Boulevard, which this property doesn't actually connect to, so it doesn't actually apply. And then there's a condition related to requirements associated with an NPDES permit, but it doesn't apply because the lot's not big enough where the previous lot was. So we would have a little bit of a cleanup to remove those two conditions, which we will do as part of the after process if the city council approves the application. So that would conclude my report. Recommendation would be to approve the comprehensive plan map and zoning map amendments.
Is there any questions of staff? Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this issue? I know that there's someone online.
Sorry, we do have two folks online, but it looks like Nick is raising his hand.
And they're speaking in favor of the issue? Okay.
Correct. There we go.
Yes. Hello.
Alrighty.
Nick Wecker. I'm with Barghausen Consultant Engineers. We're the civil engineer and architect for Thoroughbred Car Wash that will be working on the design services for this development pending approval, pending your approval of the comprehensive plan amendment and rezone. Thank you, Kelly, for the nice presentation. We did go to Planning Commission and obtain a recommendation of approval for the applications that are before you this evening. And I'm kind of here to answer any questions. I can speak to an overview of our proposal a little bit. This is going to be a proposed 3,000 square foot conveyor car wash tunnel that'll also provide 15 vacuum spaces that are free to use for Thoroughbred members and customers. And we intend to utilize the access that's already established within this development. And we'll also have 3 employee spaces as well. There'll always be an attendant on site during business hours, at least one. So we have 3 parking spaces provided as well. And again, thank you for the opportunity and happy to answer any questions you may have on our proposal.
Any questions from council? All righty. Is Mr. Hayes, are you speaking in favor of the issue?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm the Director of Development for the car wash, and I believe it would be a great addition to the wonderful city of Lebanon.
Ooh, it's Lebanon. Not Lebanon.
Lebanon, sorry, that was a mic issue.
Strike this proposal.
All righty, thank you so much. Is there anybody would like to speak in opposition? All right, the public hearing is hereby closed at 6:47. All further discussions will be limited to council and staff at this time. Is there any discussion to be had?
Kelly, I think cleared up, because on this picture, I'm not really great at reading these pictures, but the access to it, that there shows a driveway right off the highway, that would only be directed one direction.
Yeah, you would
Yeah,
only
but
have right
else,
out.
Then people diving across, and the access coming from the other direction would actually come from the light past there or where Walgreens is.
Correct.
Correct? Is that correct?
Frontage road?
Yes.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure.
Okay. Any other discussion? All righty. Will the city attorney please read the title of the ordinance?
Sorry about that. I was talking to the chief about very important things. Ordinance number 8 for 2025, ordinance bill number 3039, comprehensive plan and zoning map amendments to change the designation from mixed use to commercial, highway commercial for a 1.35 acre parcel on the east side of South Santiam Highway, north of Burdell Boulevard. I need my reading glasses when I do this.
Or bigger print.
I think that's it, isn't it?
Are you good?
I think that's it.
Okay. Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve has passed. Okay, thank you so much, gentlemen. We're going to move on to regular session, resolution number 2025-14. I will be recusing myself on this one and handing over this portion of the regular session to our council president.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just give me a second here.
It's at the bottom there.
Yes, I see, sorry. So we're discussing resolution number 2025-14. City Manager Ron Whitledge, can you please give the report?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Council President, councilors, and Mayor. What we have before you here tonight is a recommendation for declaring a property surplus. The said property in question is the Santiam Travel Station. As you know, we have moved our council chambers into here. We've looked at the use of the Santiam Travel Station as far as a municipal use moving forward, and we do not believe that there is any use for it as far as the city is concerned. A little bit of background on the building. The renovation was done with grants back in the early 2000s. Kelly Hart and myself have gone through ODOT and also the historic SHPO and determined that from their guidance that we would not have to pay back any of the grant funds that were utilized on the building. The only caveat was that the building would have to have a remain historical clause on the deed. And so that would be the only caveat if we sell the building. So one of the things that we have to do as this body, you all have to do, is if we bring a property to you, you must declare it surplus if you deem that it's surplus. So by declaring it surplus, it allows us to proceed with public notice, a hearing, and ultimately the sale of the property. In this case, we do have a current appraisal on the property. So my recommendation would be that we work with a realtor and or some of the other folks that we've been working with and move the property forward for sale. If we come to a point, once we've declared it surplus, the next step in this process would be to have a public hearing. That public hearing would occur in October, and that's a chance for the public to comment on the proposal to declare it surplus. So right now, what we need to do is declare it surplus. With that, what it does is authorize me to take steps to proceed with a sale. Ensures the sale will be conducted. We can solicit offers. We can have people give us offers, move forward with that process. So the requested action here tonight is to adopt Resolution 2025-14, declaring the Santiam Travel Station as surplus property. And with that, I can answer any questions.
Questions for staff? You said it was October for the meeting for public comment, was that correct?
So what we would do is come back in the October meeting with a public hearing if we have a letter of intent from somebody, or if we have somebody that really wants to purchase the building.
Okay.
We would come back and hold that public hearing, and at that point, we would move forward with potentially a purchase sales agreement, pending on what it comes back. So that could be as soon as October. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have questions for staff? Okay. Will the city attorney read the title of the resolution? Glasses this time.
Resolution number 2025-14, declaring city-owned property as surplus and authorizing its sale.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution 2025-14.
Second.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Bring this stuff back over to the mayor. Now that I've torn his agenda apart, sorry. It was on 2 pages.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
All righty, with that being done, we will move on to department reports. City manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. One of the things that I wanted to bring up tonight, since the museum board was here, we have been asked to donate the totem pole that was in Strawberry Plaza to the museum board. It's currently out at our Cheetah Lake shop. We do not believe that it would be viable to try and repair and put back out in the elements. They, however, would like to repair it and put it in their future museum, wherever that's at. So it's not an asset. It's not on our asset list. So donating it to them is no issue. We wouldn't have any other use for it. It would probably get thrown away, for lack of better terms, if we did not do this. So we will store it out at Cheetah Lake. I've talked to Jason about that at our Cheetah Lake shop out there until they do find a building. So that's one thing that happened. We will have probably a presentation next on the September 24th meeting. By the way, there is a noon meeting at September 24th. But one of the presentation will be Benton Clean and Strong. They have reached out to me. What that is an organization that is trying to advocate for the expansion of Coffin Butte. I asked that they come give a presentation to the city council. There are serious economic consequences if we don't expand Coffin Butte and if it closes. So before we offered a letter of support or a resolution supporting that, I would like them to give you a presentation on what they're doing and what their expectations of us are. So that'll happen at the September 24th meeting. At the last meeting, I believe Brandon told you that our auditors were thinking that they were going to be behind. I think Brandon has kicked and poked and prodded and maybe has them to where we will meet that December 31st deadline as opposed to missing it. So this is for the last year's audit that's getting ready to start. I covered the second council meeting. Kelly's departure, which we're all sad. We're going to throw a great big party. Yeah, we're going to throw a huge party. We're going to post it on billboards and everything else. No, with her departure, we will be doing a recruitment here coming up soon. Also, Ryan was here tonight. He did not allude to this, but the Council of Oregon Governments will fill in for the planning for us. They have a planning section. So we met with the planner that will be doing our planning commission meetings and reviewing and approving any of our administrative applications this morning. Seems like a great guy. Looking forward to working with him. And his name is Dan. Yeah, yeah, we won't go into that. Kelly and I, it's a long story. Other than that, unless you have any questions for me, that's all I got.
All righty. Doesn't look like we have any questions from council.
Okay.
Thank you so much. We'll move on to items from council. Is there any items that councilors want to bring up?
I just want to remind everybody that the 9/11 Flag of Honor event is tomorrow starting at 10 at the Circle of Flags outside of Boulder Falls, and it would be great to have everybody there.
Thank you. Nothing else? All righty. Is there any additional public or press comments? Please come forward. So the microphone can hear you. Come on.
So concerning the Lebanon Museum, so while we all know that Bob Smith was a well-known person in this town, it's not Bob and Betty Smith for the Lebanon Museum, it's Bob and Betty Adams.
Great people.
Okay.
Pitch.
Told you it wasn't a big deal.
All right. Well, we needed it on the record. Any other public comments? The press, you didn't have anything? Okay. All righty. The next scheduled council meeting will be a noon work session on September 24th, 2025. With that being said, this meeting is adjourned.